Hello and welcome to Hopeful Consciousness. I'm Paul, by the way, in case you've not met me, and this is day one of my 14-day challenge to hopefully help you hit an awakening moment like I've had recently. So yeah, here we go. So I think it all started really back in August 2018 when I bought a book on Audible. A rather unusual book for me to buy, to be honest. Up until that point, I'd only really ever considered things like fantasy, science fiction. From 2011 onwards, I was looking at more personal development things, stuff like Tony Robbins, Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, Jim Rohn's audio stuff, which I absolutely love to bits. And then on the sort of business front, you've got Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, and that led me down a different route in terms of the business side of things. But still, I was pretty much zero spiritually in my head. I'd always stayed away from anything slightly religious because of, we see a lot of bad stuff in the press about things, and there's the historical stuff about people fighting over their beliefs and conflicts that are created as a result of that. So I've always steered clear of those sort of things, really. And yeah, it all started with a chap you may well know called Steve Jobs. So someone I would say is almost idolized for his success over here by some, and also, his tech genius, financial success and things like that. And he did something rather interesting at his funeral. He left a little brown box on everyone's seat, or rather had someone do it, with a book inside. And that book was Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda, if I've got that right. So I came across that news article about this is a book that Steve Jobs has left for the world, and I'm sort of like, why would someone who you wouldn't associate with anything spiritual or anything like that leave a book by a yogi at his funeral? And it just got me curious. So from that point onwards, really, I thought, okay, let's have a look at this book. And it's read by Ben Kingsley, if you get the Audible version, so it's really well narrated. It's got over 1,900 reviews, I think, on Amazon for the actual book, even more on Goodreads. So it's highly recommended by people. And as I started to go through that, it basically details this yogi's life, and all of the things associated with that, all of his sort of belief systems, the way of him being and things like that. And it's not long into the book before you start sort of coming up against things like miraculous healings and sort of people describing sort of passing away and then coming back into another newborn sort of body, and these sort of concepts. And I was just like, whoa, hang on a second, this is a bit strange. On a Western world front, we're taught that none of that stuff is real, none of that can happen, there's no scientific basis for any of it. So it started to challenge my beliefs a little bit along those lines, beliefs which I'm very much aware now are just part of an identity you create for yourself. But I had an open mind, so I kept on reading, going through it all, and there was just account after account with more and more of these miraculous things going on. People appearing and disappearing on the River Ganges and things like that. So it really just opened my eyes into some of our human potential. I thought, if even a slightest bit of that is possible, even a fraction of that book is possible, what an amazing potential we could have as human beings. He goes on to look at some of the teachings and details of his interpretation of who Christ was, and figures like this throughout history, and goes on to even the nature of the universe. And you're thinking, well, hang on a second, how can you, as a yogi with very little, what we would call scientific knowledge, know about the nature of the universe and things like that? And it's all stuff passed down from his sort of master, I guess, and onto him, and then through what he's discovered in his own life as well. And it just really opened my eyes to the concept that not everything is as it might appear. You know, over if we showed you someone like levitating, immediately you'd be ridiculed and dismissed about stuff like that. But part of me is just like, wow, you know, if levitating, teleportation, and that's possible, interesting. And you're like, well, would this guy lie about it just to sell a few books or for whatever means he might have? And you think, maybe that is a possibility. Yeah, there's always the chance that could happen. Or is it something a little bit more? And there's some truth to some of this. So it just sparked my curiosity. And that's really the start of the journey. So I do hope you have a look at the book. Autobiography of a Yogi. I recommend the audio version on Audible, very good. And see if it opens your eyes like it did with mine. And I'll see you again tomorrow for day 2, where I'll take you through what happened next.